Actually, right as I was reviewing these slides, it came up about mobile homes. So, taking it from our slides, like people, have you guys ever met a homeless person? Anybody?
Yes.
And what's weird is I usually think it's going to be like an old crusty man that's like drinking a fifth of vodka on the street. And the truth is, they can actually look more like me and you, especially during this economic downturn we've had. So a lot of it comes from lack of affordable housing, poverty and low income, social issues, and substance abuse. Um, we mentioned mental illness and domestic violence, and then the unemployment facts. So, kind of going over, supposedly this year there's a higher unemployment rate. But as I was reviewing these slides, this video came up, and have you guys ever seen a mobile home park? Hello. How are
Can
you?
I listen? Can I present my thing today?
You can, yeah.
Okay.
That's fine. Any of you guys ever seen a mobile home park? So I also had kind of like a prejudgment on mobile home parks that a lot of them are kind of bad, but that's not necessarily true. They actually can be a nice affordable housing area. And in the past 10 years, what we've seen is actually trouble in the mobile home parks and people that look more like you and I that have been getting pushed out of the mobile home park. So here is the video that I saw.
You really want my true opinion about this? I think they're out for one thing, and that's nothing but money.
For over 20 years, Francine Townsend has lived in a mobile home. And for much of that time, she absolutely loved it.
It was very, very nice. I mean, it was like a family here. Every neighbor helped everybody. Like, if my grass wasn't cut, the neighbor across the street would cut it. If her grass didn't get cut that week, I would cut hers. And that's just how we were. We were just like one big family.
The big change came in 2012 with the arrival of RHP Properties, a corporation entwined with Brookfield Asset Management, a Toronto-based private equity firm.
So these are mobile homes that are actually in a nice neighborhood, and they're like, what mobile homes are is they can be set on the back of a semi and then delivered. So they're not always huge, but you could have a big one. They call it a double wide, and that's kind of one of the issues is you pay what's called lot rent, and it could be $300, $400, or $500 a month, but you own your entire house outright. So that's all you have to pay for your rent or mortgage or whatever. What they saw in the past 10 years is some of these mobile homes getting taken over by Wall Street folks.
It bought control of the mobile home community where Francine lives. And soon after, the money Francine paid to have her home in the community, called the land fee or the lot rent, started going up.
None of that is supposed to be in here. All of a sudden, you got this big spike the first year they came in. And then you start seeing it going up, up, and up, and up. My land fee reached almost $1,400.
Manufactured housing, commonly known as mobile homes, is a vital source of affordable housing for about 3 million households across 45,000 communities in the United States. These households have a median income of about $36,000 and include vulnerable populations like seniors, the disabled, and immigrants. Mass production and simple design give people of modest means like Francine a chance to have a place they can call home.
Because that was a place that if you retired, you would be able to afford. It was your own yard, you had your own driveway, and it was like, oh.
So mobile homes are, you guys may have seen them in your neighborhood. There can be bad ones, but there's also very many good ones. And kind of the issue that's coming up is different people are getting into the home rental business, home ownership business, and they're raising the lot rent, which has made it a bit unfair for affordable housing for these folks.
Despite the name, mobile homes are not mobile in the sense that owners can simply drive away if the lot owners turn troublesome.
It would cost you $8,000 just to get it moved, as much to buy a new one if you go anywhere else.
Where Francine saw an affordable home in a friendly community, RHP Properties saw only a profit opportunity. Private equity firms and the corporate homeowners they work with do everything they can to maximize revenue and squeeze costs, no matter the human toll. Whether they're price gouging people for vital services like housing, shortening life expectancy in nursing homes, or destroying local newspapers with ruthless cost cutting, the private equity industry is responsible for some of the most harmful business practices in the United States. Its abuses are pervasive, stretching across the American economy through many industries.
Come on in here. I dare you. You shouldn't have been here when the potholes needed fixed.
Outrage in the community over RHP's behavior grew rapidly. For her part, Francine found herself trying to get the management to simply do its job.
I did around the house all day, you still been looking for his head.
It wasn't simply the land fee. RHP started charging for services that were once included in the rent, like water.
So this tree fell from here all the way over to my back steps.
And when it came to maintaining the community by clearing fallen trees or filling potholes,
They never came, never came.
the company simply vanished.
Where are you? You're a maintenance? I got another maintenance right first. Yeah. Do your job. When was the first time I ever seen you? We ain't had maintenance in 8 months. So now you a maintenance? Do your job.
Lease like battle with the owner in Department Capital.
Corporate and private equity acquisitions of mobile home communities have left homeowners across the United States destitute.
Rent was going to rise from $205 a month to $500 a month.
What do I do? Dig a hole somewhere and be a cakewalk?
In some cases, they have jacked up prices for homeowners by up to 60% by layering on school taxes, trash fees, and administrative charges atop the rent, all new costs that previous owners never imposed. They have also kicked out homeowners despite federal rules against evictions during the COVID-19 pandemic. Financial reformers are seeking a fundamental restructuring of the predatory private equity industry by passing groundbreaking federal legislation known as the Stop Wall Street Looting Act.
Hi, my name is Francine Townsend. I'm closer to Brian Cavanaugh. I live in a manufacturing facility in Spring Valley, New York.
Mobile home residents are seeking an end to the abusive practices of corporate and private equity owners and fair ownership structures that preserve the communities they've built over the years.
This is me and my husband at the end of his last journey, and has so much loving memories of my husband that is no longer with me. And I feel that if I let that go, I'm letting it go. So that's what I love about my mobile home.
All right, so that's one of the places, kind of the affordability of places are getting worse. And
It's cold, lowest prices of the season.
if you guys have even seen like local vacant malls, do you guys have like a physical mall in your hometown anymore? Like Kenwood Town Center, or where they have the Apple Store, or where they have any of that? Right. Right, so that's kind of where we were covering this, and I'll show you this after our presentation, but we were just doing a search on the abandoned malls of just Ohio. So we have dozens in Ohio. even some abandoned mansions that they were showing. So one had kind of a store of like the malls getting bigger in the 70s and 80s. Actually, it was the only place we could meet like a girlfriend or boyfriend in the 90s. Like we didn't have Facebook or texting or, you would go to physical places. That's where they had started putting movie theaters. But after the collapse of 2000, I didn't know Taylor Swift had an abandoned mansion. That must be where like she grew up as a kid. Or did she, maybe she built it and just like moved out. Nobody could afford it. And Madonna had an abandoned mansion. So yeah, you see more and more of these abandoned places showing the unemployment, the poverty. Is a lot of these had the jobs where when these malls are 80 or 90% full, like you're saying, everybody's moving out. They're more at like 30% and now 10%. So they look more like this because that's one of the Cincinnati Mills Mall. This one's abandoned, but it's still open, which is strange because you can go and like walk around there. So it just kind of shows the unemployment facts, which sometimes folks also move in. Homeless folks move into there and stay in those different malls, but it's definitely strange. This is one in Cincinnati. Do we have anybody here who's from Cincinnati? No. Okay. All right. Well, we'll check this one out after you give your presentation. If you want to do that, did you email it or did you do like?
I submitted it. What's the name of the D12?
Oh, okay. I can pull it up there. Let's see. Let's see here. Login. Where'd you do your observation at?
I did it based off an old experience with when I was at a nurse home.
Oh, where was that? Which part of the country are you?
Even
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Huh. Is there a lot of nursing homes up that way?
Yeah.
Interesting. All right, let's see if yours went through. And so yeah, those of you that still have to do it, like restaurant, the Frisch's or the Perkins or anywhere like around here is good. Anywhere you work or do your field experience is also good. And some folks have gone to the Walmart around here. That's obviously one of the areas, or like a local mall. So some people, I don't know where the local mall around here is, but you probably have to go to Dayton. So did you turn it into this one?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And so, yeah, when you write up your PowerPoint, just make sure to turn it in so I get notified. And which one are you? Are you the last?
Yeah.
Okay.
It's the one that, because I had to take something on it, so that's the one I just.
That?
No, the other one.
Uh-oh. Okay.
I love it.
Let's go back and download it. So there you go. Cool.
I have seen it too.
If that's kind of what we're teaching you guys to do. So, and I can turn the pages for you.
Okay, so field observation by Janae Williams. That's me.
There you go.
I did my observation at a nursing home, and St. Mary Home is a nursing home located in West Hartford, Connecticut. The majority of people in West Hartford are white. It has around 90 beds, but while I was there were about 65 residents. Around 75% of the residents were white. I applied for a dietary aid position in June 2020 for a summer job, but I quit in August 2020 because they were racist.
So how many months were you there? June, July, and August?
Yeah.
Okay.
2 months.
Okay.
So my expectations first was for everything to go smooth because I only worked 5-hour shifts. I expected to be racially profiled because it was majority white people there. Treated different because I was new, staring, and for some reasons to be rude. During my experience, I got called the little black girl. Nobody wanted to train me. People would always stare. Some residents would touch and pull my hair without my permission and rude to me because of where I was from, which is from Bridgeport, Connecticut. They get old.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay.
So overall, I knew things were going to go well for me since I heard bad things about West Hartford growing up. One of which was that it was racist because it was mostly made up of rich old white people. I was hesitant about getting a job there and expected it to be much worse. However, I say that I wanted a reaction and I didn't give it to them. Instead, I ignored them and focused on the bigger picture. That's it.
Okay. That's good. Any questions from you guys for anything? Because as mentioned, are you a social work major?
Yeah.
That's partly why we do this, and not just social work majors, but especially social work majors. We often encounter every race, religion, creed, and nationality in all of our work. So the important thing is to do like what you've done and like know that there's plenty of social work positions out there and plenty of other jobs. You don't have to put up with stuff like that. You probably don't want to work for a place where something like that's going on. Best to leave, and if you react and fight back, you often get yourself in trouble instead of having leaving with your dignity. So they had us do these field observation presentations even in Kentucky in 2007. And just knowing that I'd be exposed, especially when you're dealing with, if you work in a city, everybody experiences unemployment, everybody experiences addiction and alcoholism. Like, it doesn't matter your race, gender, creed, religion, or anything. Like, it affects everyone. So, finishing up with the homeless and unemployment facts, we mentioned social workers' role in unemployment. And so we try to connect people with unemployment compensation and also help with workers' compensation. There's also employee assistance programs. So that would be for personal and family counseling and even mental health issues or even chemical dependency. We also have transitions to services for dealing with job loss, things that you would see. We also have criminal justice facts in the system. So we have in criminal justice, we have a bunch of criminal justice majors in here. I'm trying to remember. Any of you guys criminal justice? You minor in it? Okay. So you'll see some of these stats, but social workers do work a lot with law enforcement and work with folks that we don't always want to have to work with, but we collaborate. So law enforcement, court, and correction officers. There's a difference between punishment and rehabilitation philosophy. And there is an overrepresentation of minorities. Some other facts are that there's challenges for special population groups like older prisoners, persons with mental illness, and retardation, also sex offenders. And if you don't have rehabilitation in there and you've got a sex offender, nobody will get better. Nobody can get better in time. So it's important to add rehab, but in, again, a bad economy or somebody owns a private prison, that's one of the first things they cut is a rehab program because it costs money, even though it would make the prisoners able to rehabilitate. Also, incarceration of men and women with children. Did you guys know that if you're married in prison, you could still get like conjugal visits? You ever heard of that? Or know what that is? So basically, if you are married, your spouse can come, so you could like make a baby if you wanted to. So like you're allowed to because you're married. And I don't know if there's a ton of prisons that still accommodate that, but if you're in like longer term and you're legally married, that was one of the things that was given. So with the unemployment, so I know you guys are a lot younger. Who would be the oldest one in the class? Are you guys like all born in either 2001 or 2002? Okay, 2003, 2001. So you guys might not, were you born in 2001 or?
1999.
Okay. So you guys may remember, like those of you born in the 90s and early 2000s, we had a really bad recession in 2008. Were you 04? Okay. Yeah, so you might not remember, you would have been 4 and 5, but we had tons of layoffs, tons of people unemployed, increase in homelessness. And what we saw from this is also the different malls that came about. If this is edited as nicely as the one we watched this morning, I want to show this because it kind of shows the flow of good economy, 70s and 80s. Our best economy was 90s. Actually, 1999 was the strongest the US dollar ever was. You could buy lots. And then in 2001, we had a recession. So every 7 to 10 years, we have what's called an economic recession. And a lot of people get laid off, and there's like an economic downturn. And as social workers, we have to learn how to help people connect with services they need for that. So here's kind of the way we could see economic downturns with, if you just search abandoned malls, Ohio, or whatever city you're from, abandoned malls, Chicago, Indianapolis, there's a lot. It's just music. I'm going to go to the one we watched this morning. It actually broke it down pretty well. I have a feeling it is just music. But it's kind of creepy because they show all the different like places that you could visit and still open. This is also in Ohio. This is one we watched this morning. But as I mentioned, these were like the epicenter. This was the Facebook of the 1980s and 1990s. Like you went here to meet people. This was Match.com. This was the Amazon, and it no longer is.
I got these 2 great tennis players. All we need is a club.
And it shows how job losses have occurred.
What's up, guys? My name is Jake. Welcome to Up.
I forgot that dude's voice is kind of annoying, so I'm going to turn it down. But he does good work. And he has a lot of abandoned places.
Whole world that I've been really interested in. It's a perfect example of the classic American suburban mall, and that's the Rolling Acres Mall. So the Rolling Acres Mall is located in Akron, Ohio. Developed by
Anybody from Cleveland? It's close to Cleveland up here, so.
Forest City Enterprises, the Rolling Acres Mall opened on August 6, 1975, as a perfect example of the American mall boom. When the mall first opened, it didn't gain much attention with its 21 stores. However, it began to gain some traction, and by the end of 1975, the mall had 50 stores. The first anchor store the mall had was Sears, until it was joined by JCPenney the following year.
A lot of these places used Sears because a husband and wife could go to Sears, and if she wanted to go shopping for a purse or clothing, often the man, this is how Sears got so popular. They had car stuff, oil change things, tools, refrigerators, and they had something for everybody. And so Sears started out malls, lots of jobs, good economy, although the 70s were a recession. This is probably right at the end of the recession, but you see the mall go downhill within the first really 15 years.
The mall became really popular as the years went on, as it catered well to families and young commuters. In 1978, the mall went through a massive expansion to add new retail space, and by this time, the mall was pretty large. As the years went on, the mall continued to expand and grow. It had a rare 2-story design for the area, hosted a movie theater, and an impressive and expansive water fountain, and a promenade with palm trees. You never see malls in the north with palm trees anymore. Anyway, in 1995, the mall continued to grow when Target built its store next to the mall, and a 21,000 square foot passageway was constructed to connect the two. However, 4 years earlier, the mall made the poor decision to cut costs on security, and rather than employ off-duty police officers, they would employ normal mall security. This arguably led to the 1991 incident where a fight broke out just outside the movie theater. During this fight, it was reported that a gunshot was fired. This wasn't really good for the mall's image, but by 1995, it's arguably where the mall reached its peak. Specifically, the mall reached a capacity of 140 stores and an impressive 5 anchor stores. The mall had a parking capacity of 7,500 cars and housed 1.3.
So you can tell how old it is based off of them cars. They're like probably 70s and 80s cars, and that peak of our economy was the 1990s. The strength of the dollar, the ability to purchase stuff, and we didn't go online until the .com bust was 2000 and 2001. So you still had to go to physical stores instead of Amazon to buy this stuff.
Million square feet of retail space. Shortly after Target opened, the mall began losing stores, including the movie theater. In addition, the JCPenney was downgraded to become an outlet center, as well as the Dillard's, which also became something similar. In 1997, the nearby Summit Mall went through a multi-million-dollar renovation, with its local area booming. It seems as though Forest City Enterprise knew what was happening and made the smart decision to sell the mall for $33.5 million to Bankers Trust in 2000.
So look at that number and then watch it as they sell it the next several years. You can see kind of the decline.
It wasn't long after until the mall was sold again for $2.75 million, a staggering $30.75 million less. By 2003, the mall was only at 50% occupancy. As more left, more stores became discounted and lesser quality than they were prior. During 2003, the cinema opened back up as a discount movie theater. Things were getting very bad for the mall. And it was made much worse when their first anchor store, Target, closed and relocated to nearby Wadesworth in early 2006. Later, in August of 2006, another anchor store, Dillard's, closed, which left the mall at an occupancy rate of 30 to 40%.
So you mentioned everybody moving out of the mall by your house, and that's really what happened here, and a lot of stuff went online. The pandemic made it the worst. I think everything we bought was online. So if there's any malls left to die, it will happen this year.
The slow economy crept on and the local area income not doing much better. Teen gangs began to show up around the mall. And in early 2007, multiple stores inside the mall reported merchandise being stolen. This was actually later found out to be a homeless man living in one of the vacant stores. As 2008 rolled in.
So the homelessness got worse. You've got 70% of the stores just totally empty, and they still got to pay to heat this space, pay for the electric and the bills. Nice place for homeless people, but not good for business because you're paying for empty spaces.
Then the mall was doing severely bad. In April, Macy's closed its store inside the mall. With so few tenants, the mall took some drastic measures to save money, like turning off their escalators and auctioning off mall fixtures. Things seemed to be so bad that it appears they stopped paying for their website as it went offline in early 2008. In summer of 2008, the cinema closed for its final time, which put them all into the fear of not being able to pay for its $150,000 electric bill.
There's a spirit to this mall. There's a soul here, and that spirit and soul will not allow this place to die.
Penny's has been here forever.
A lot of older people.
Right next to them was
A lot of older folks like to walk in the mall when it's warm in the winter time. So that's kind of what it was. Now it's down to 12% occupancy. So you still got to pay for almost 88% of those spaces that are empty and only 12% of people using it.
bank also.
We have little people here, and it's the tenants, it's the people running the little restaurants. It's all a bunch of little people who are keeping a big dream alive.
People that came from Barberton and Norton, what are they gonna do?
We will be lost with something this mall closes.
So a lot of unemployment.
By October 2008, only 8 tenants remained, one being a church, another being a Dollarama, and several others being organizations. Finally, in the fall of 2008, all Rolling Acres tenants were notified that the mall could no longer afford power, and that the mall will close as soon as possible. However, this would not affect the 2 remaining anchor stores, as they would still continue operations. The last few days of the mall were not only sad, but creepily surreal.
So these empty malls being everywhere used to provide jobs, used to give people income for their families, places to shop. The past 10 years, we've just seen them all collapse. And part of it's online retail, but another part is the bad economy and the weakening of the US dollar. Do they have any empty malls in
But
Russia?
then finally, on October
Like as bad as this one?
Not as bad, but
Okay.
they started here. We're a little bit after USA. So in 20 years, probably it will be the same.
Right. Okay.
October 31st, Halloween Day, 2008, the Rolling Acres Mall closed permanently as power was cut to the structure. This left the interior of the mall completely abandoned. In May of 2009, the mall was auctioned off online. However, with some initial interest prior, nobody bid. It wasn't until 2010 that a California-based company, Premier Ventures LLC, purchased the building for $3 million. At this point, very little was known about the company. Not too long after, Sears announced they would be closing their store by April 20th, 2011. This left JCPenney Outlet to be the only remaining store left in the structure. 2010 to 2011 were also the years that the mall began to be regularly broken into and scrapped.
So you see those dead trees there. It's like clear they're not caring for it. And now people are coming in cutting the copper wires because that's worth a lot of money to buy the copper.
By 2010, much of the copper wiring and metal railings were removed by scrappers. By the time 2011 came in, weird and creepy things began to occur. Inside the mall is a pretty dangerous place. Throughout, there are tons of bullet holes and shot-out skylights. In April of 2011, a man trying to steal copper was electrocuted and killed when an electrical box exploded. The man was found on fire while holding bolt cutters. Later in the year, a 47-year-old man by the name of Timothy Kern vanished.
Let's go help people customize these.
So it kind of has that like shakeout effect where it starts affecting more and more people, and you have nowhere to even shop locally. You have to go further away. So stuff like that.
After responding to a Craigslist ad, Timothy was found dead in a shallow grave behind the mall. His death was linked to the Craigslist killers Richard Beasley and his 16-year-old accomplice, Rogan Bradford.
Convicted Craigslist killer, 53-year-old Richard Beasley, showed no emotion Thursday as a judge sentenced him to death in Summit County Common Pleas.
On count one, this court imposes a sentence of death.
In January of 2016, a body was found hanging from a tree beside the mall. Officials deemed this as an apparent suicide. With things in the area not improving, on December 31st, 2013, JCPenney Outlet closed permanently. This left the mall officially dead without any retailers. Premier Ventures began to act a little shady in its practices. They had stopped paying for property tax and stopped paying for security altogether in 2011. Each time the city attempted to auction off the property, Premier Ventures filed for Chapter 11 bankruptcy.
So you can kind of see the degraded part of the mall where that was like the beautiful shining area to eat at the food court in 1979 and kind of turned into this in 2015, like 29 years later.
Which prevented the auction to take place. However, with the most recent time, prosecutors forced Premier Ventures to file for Chapter 11 bankruptcy, which meant they would not be allowed to file for another bankruptcy within a 9-month period. This would allow the city to try and auction off the building. While Premier Ventures was secretly attempting to find another buyer, it was revealed that the company had no offices in California at all, and instead was based out of Delaware. Currently, the company owes the county $1.2 million in property tax. So whoever ends up buying the property needs to pay that back. The mall was scheduled to go on a sheriff auction on June 7, 2016, and if no buyers are found, it will go again on June 27. If no bids are placed through the auction, no buyer is found with Premier Ventures, or if they don't pay their taxes, then the property will go to the city of Akron. Premier Ventures never announced why they bought the property and what they plan to do with it. As of 2016, 2 businesses operate out of the mall. One in the former Target, which operates as a storage facility. And the reason why I wanted to show you this is because when they built this, I'm assuming they didn't take out any of the old Target fixtures, because a lot of the Target stuff is actually still in here. And if you look at that right there, you can actually see some of the old neon. As for the other business, it operates as a recycling facility out of the former Sears. As for the rest of the building, it sits completely abandoned. Since around 2010, the mall has been beaten up pretty heavily. While yes, there are larger abandoned malls like the Randall Park Mall, which is also in Ohio, to me, I just think Rolling Acres is a perfect example of the ideal 1970s suburban mall that met its end in the 2000s. It really is such a surreal place, and its historical significance makes it one of the most, if not the most, infamous abandoned malls ever. Personally, I'm really interested in abandoned retail locations, and I would honestly love to see this place before it's gone. It really is a great American mall that met a sad end.
So with the unemployment, the layoffs, the challenging jobs, you can kind of see these. Have any of you guys ever visited Mall of America? That's like up in Minnesota. It's one of the largest. You see stuff in Cincinnati. You see houses, like Taylor Swift's house and Madonna's house, but just several things that, with a bad economy, it's just kind of strange that eventually nature takes over. And as social workers, we inherit those folks that experience the layoffs or can't pay their mortgage or pay their bills, so they do get into homelessness. And hopefully not the criminal justice system. Hopefully they come to us as social workers before they have to steal for food or basic needs. Because there's a few things social workers do in relation to criminal justice. We all saw the speaker on 2 or 3 weeks ago. He came in to talk about the police social workers. We also have forensic social workers that do investigations with child protective services or if there's abuse in the family. If you're a probation or parole officer, you actually don't need a bachelor's degree. A lot of people go right out of high school to become a parole officer. And then we do have some social workers in correctional facilities. I feel like one of you guys said you wanted to be a social worker in a correctional facility, but I can't remember who. So we just really try to be advocates, crime victim advocates. Also work in the juvenile diversion program, so have some training and rehabilitation to get 16, 17-year-olds on the path before they're 18, and then mediation for victims and offenders, and then the victim witness programs. So for folks that have had challenges from that. So finishing with that, anybody else have questions about your field observation presentation? Just make sure you get it up into here in D2L.
Deadline is open next week, so we should present next week. Yes.
Right, either Tuesday or Thursday of next week. And I can film it on the YouTube live for you, or you can film it yourself and put it up. I've already put up our next one. It's going to be a diversity paper, so I have the instructions for that next week for you guys. But that's all I have for today. It's only been 40 minutes, but I want to give you a chance to work on that stuff. So if you haven't gotten it moving, just make sure to go and do it. Do it right now. And we'll do a sign-in sheet for you. Here you go.
I need to ask you to write some kind of, I don't know how to call it. For my exchange program, they asked me to approach my